If the last few days felt strangely reflective or maybe even a little activating, you are feeling this corridor correctly. What we're moving through is a structured recalibration that began on February the 10th and will take us all the way to February 14th. And today, I'm going to walk you through this sequence and show you why you're feeling it and why it matters, and why there's no coincidence that it ends on Valentine's Day. When energy feels only mildly off, the mind tends to interpret it as stagnation, low motivation, regression, or emotional backtracking. But what's actually happening isn't regression at all. It's a reset that leads to illumination and is moving us into stabilization and then embodiment in that specific order. Here's how that sequence is unfolding and the energetic influence that the numerology is bringing into each day that we are moving through this week. So it starts on February 10th, and that is the reset. It's the energy of one, but a double imprint. So the day being the one energy inside a universal 1 year. And that's all about identity recalibration. It is quiet, internal, it can feel subtle. And it was a circling back or revisiting the old structure and gently shaking things up so that what needed to be reevaluated and restructured was closer to the surface. And that was yesterday. Today, February the 11th, is illumination. That's the 11 energy. So it's amplified awareness, heightened perception, sharper sensitivity. So what was coming up to the surface yesterday, today is more clearly visible. And I definitely saw that in my own world. And so February 12th is about harmonization. The 12 is bringing stabilization to what was illuminated on the 11th. Recalibration, relational specifically. Subtle emotional correction. So if there was uncertainty or second guessing that was taking place today, that will begin to dissipate and starts to feel more grounded. Then by Friday the 13th, that 13 is a very internalized experience. It's about reorganizing truth in an intimate way. It's about private processing and bringing our focus back to the one, the universal one and the personal one. And then that will take us finally to February 14th. And that, which is Saturday, is when we're going to be moving into the phase of embodiment. And there's no mistake why this is also Valentine's Day in North America. Even though this is highly commercialized, it still carries that frequency of embodied love. So by Saturday the 14th, it will all be about our authority, our inner authority, and standing in what you have just become as you've moved through this week, but doing it in integrity. So this week's progression is crystal clear. We moved through a reset on the 10th, into illumination on the 11th. We'll then move into harmonizing on the 12th, which is tomorrow, and then internalizing that on Friday the 13th, and then rising to embody who you are becoming on Valentine's Day, February the 14th. That is structured, progressive integration. But here's why this can feel uncomfortable. When an identity resets quietly, old emotional residue typically starts to loosen, and you've probably felt that. And then when illumination hits, like it did today, that's when the residue that's been being kicked to the surface becomes visible. And when stabilization begins after that, that's when we start to feel the discrepancy between who we've been and who we're becoming. And that can show up as self-judgment, questioning the timing of things, even subtle insecurity or some emotional waves. But it's not regression, it's just simply the sequencing. It's like movement is returning, but it's doing so in a way that is controlled. It's not impulsive, and that can feel slower and perhaps somewhat strange if you're used to reacting to impulse or moving through chaos. How you experience this in your body will be very different depending on where you are in your personal arc. You could feel increased appetite, a desire for heavier or fattier foods, a need for more sleep, or you could feel particularly energized and clear, or a mix of all of it. I know for myself, I was feeling a mix of all of it. Definitely the appetite piece for me yesterday. It was really, really intense. But the load is felt personally, but I want you to be aware that this sequence is collective. So everybody is experiencing this in their own way. So what's the greater purpose behind this corridor? It's to reorganize our systems before accelerating, so that when forward movement arrives, it is cleaner and it's more fluid. Interpret that as less bumpy. And that's what we're moving through. So if the last few days felt subtly different, but certainly significant, that's exactly what they were. And as you move through this week and notice yourself feeling steadier or clearer, that is the reset settling in. But here's the shift that I want to invite you into. Instead of seeing what is surfacing now through the lens of failure or disappointment, choose to see it as integration. This week isn't about rapid expansion. We can see in the pattern of the energetics that it is about gently integrating coherence. If you'd like to stay connected as we continue to move through this arc, feel free to like this video, and you are welcome to subscribe to my channel for more. I'm Katya, and I will see you in the next one.